They say life can change in the blink of an eye. I never fully understood that until the morning I stumbled across the truth. It was supposed to be an ordinary Saturday. I woke up to the sound of birds chirping outside, the sunlight streaming through the curtains, and the smell of freshly brewed coffee wafting from the kitchen. Selena always made coffee first thing in the morning, a habit she claimed helped her feel human before tackling her hectic day. As I walked into the kitchen, there she was, standing by the counter with her phone in one hand and her coffee mug in the other. Her hair was still damp from the shower, and she looked calm, almost too calm. She greeted me with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes, and I thought, what a perfect picture of normalcy. But normalcy can be a facade, and that morning, I was about to find out just how deep her deception ran. I had no idea what I was looking for when I walked into the master bathroom later that day. It started with something simple, tidying up. I pulled the trash can out from under the sink, intending to empty it. That's when I saw it, half hidden beneath crumpled tissues and an empty bottle of shampoo. A pregnancy test. The pink plastic cap caught my eye first. At first, I thought nothing of it, but then curiosity got the better of me. When I pulled it out, my breath hitched. There they were, two unmistakable pink lines. Positive. My chest tightened as the realization hit me. Selena hadn't told me anything about this, and for good reason. We hadn't been intimate in months. My hands trembled as I turned the test over, searching for an explanation that wouldn't come. The walls of our bathroom seemed to close in around me, the air heavy with a truth I wasn't ready to face. I spent the next few minutes standing in the bathroom, gripping the test like it might shatter if I moved too quickly. Thoughts raced through my mind, each more damning than the last. Selena wasn't careless. She was meticulous, always thinking 3 steps ahead. If she had left this test in the trash, it wasn't an accident. Was it a subtle confession? Or was she so confident in her lies that she didn't think I'd find it? I replayed the past few months in my mind, searching for signs I had missed. The late nights at work, the sudden need for space, the way she clutched her phone like it held secrets she couldn't risk me discovering. It all painted a picture I didn't want to see. I couldn't confront her. Not yet. Selena had a way of turning the tables, of making me feel like the bad guy even when she was knee-deep in her own betrayal. I needed a plan, and for that, I needed evidence. As the minutes stretched on in that bathroom, I tried to shake the overwhelming urge to confront Selena right then and there. Every fiber of my being screamed for answers, demanded an explanation. But the logical part of me, the part that had learned to navigate the delicate dance of our strained relationship, knew better. Selena was clever. Too clever for her own good. If I stormed out of the bathroom waving that test, she'd twist the narrative until I was left questioning my own sanity. Instead, I took a deep breath and carefully placed the test back where I'd found it. My fingers worked methodically, rearranging the tissues and trash to make it look undisturbed. My heart raced, pounding in my ears as I tried to steady myself. By the time I left the bathroom, my mind was already churning with possibilities. I walked into the kitchen, where Selena was scrolling through her phone, her face a mask of serenity. She sipped her coffee and didn't even glance up as I entered. For a brief moment, I really studied her. The way her hair fell over her shoulders, the slight furrow in her brow as she read whatever was on her screen. She looked so normal. But that was the thing about Selena. Her greatest strength was her ability to hide the chaos she left in her wake. "Morning," I said, forcing a casual tone as I grabbed a cup of coffee. My voice didn't betray the storm brewing inside me. If she noticed the slight tremor in my hand as I poured the coffee, she didn't show it. "Morning," she replied, her tone light and breezy. "You're up early." I smiled faintly, though it felt like my face might crack under the strain. "Yeah, figured I'd get a head start on some chores." "Good for you," she said, her eyes never leaving her phone. The lie rolled off my tongue before I could stop it. Over the next few days, I became a shadow in my own home. I watched Selena more closely than ever, paying attention to the little things I had ignored for far too long. The way she always kept her phone face down on the table as though she was hiding something. The way she seemed more distracted, her laughter a little too forced. It all started to fit into a pattern I couldn't ignore. One morning, as she got ready for work, I noticed something that made my stomach churn. Her phone, which was always within arm's reach, never left her hand, not even when she went to the bathroom. It was a small detail, but one that set my mind racing. What was she hiding? And why did it feel like she was guarding her secrets more fiercely than ever? "You've been on your phone a lot lately," I said casually as I leaned against the kitchen counter, pretending to scroll through my own notifications. "Everything okay?" She froze for a fraction of a second, her fingers hovering over the screen. Then, just as quickly, she laughed and waved me off. "Oh, it's nothing. Just work emails. You know how it is." Her answer was smooth, almost too smooth. And that's when I knew she was lying. Later that day, after Selena left for work, I decided to take my search deeper. I wasn't proud of what I was about to do, but desperation had a way of erasing the lines of morality. This wasn't about paranoia, this was about survival. If I didn't figure out the truth, it would eat me alive. I started in the place where all secrets eventually surface, the trash. It felt poetic in a way to return to the scene of my first discovery. With gloved hands, I sifted through crumpled tissues, old receipts, and empty packaging until I found something that made my heart stop, a receipt from a high-end boutique in the next town over. The date on it was only 2 days ago, and the items listed didn't belong in our house. Luxury candles, silk lingerie, and a bottle of men's cologne. I stared at the receipt for what felt like an eternity, my mind racing to connect the dots. She didn't buy those things for me, that much was clear. So who were they for? And why had she gone out of her way to hide them? That evening, as we sat on the couch pretending to watch some forgettable reality show, I decided to test her. I waited until she was fully engrossed in her phone, her fingers tapping away at a message I would never see. Keeping my tone light and teasing, I asked, "Who's the cologne for?" Her head snapped up so fast I thought she might get whiplash. For a moment, she just stared at me, her face a mix of confusion and panic. "What are you talking about?" she asked, her voice sharper than usual. I held up the receipt, letting her see it. "This, from Tuesday. I didn't realize you'd gone shopping." Her mask slipped for just a second. Her eyes widened, and her mouth opened like she was about to say something, but then she recovered, laughing it off. "Oh, that? It's for my boss. His birthday is coming up, and the team pitched in for a gift. I didn't think it was a big deal, so I didn't mention it." It was a good lie, quick, believable, and just vague enough to discourage follow-up questions. But it wasn't good enough. Not this time. The room felt too small after her explanation, the air heavy with unspoken truths. Selena had always been a quick thinker, able to spin a story that sounded plausible enough to buy her time. But as she turned her attention back to her phone, I could see her fingers moving a little too quickly, her brows furrowing as if she were typing something urgent. Was she warning someone? Covering her tracks? My chest tightened with the realization that every move she made now felt calculated. That night, as she slept soundly beside me, I lay awake, staring at the ceiling. The receipt burned a hole in my mind, a reminder of the life she was hiding from me. I thought about the cologne, the lingerie, the candles. Each item painted a picture of intimacy, one I wasn't part of. The anger simmered beneath my skin, but I forced myself to stay calm. Selena thought she could outsmart me, that her lies were impenetrable. She didn't know I was already 3 steps ahead. Over the next week, I began piecing together a timeline. I noted the nights she came home late, claiming to be stuck at the office. I paid attention to her habits, how she took extra care with her appearance on certain mornings, how her phone seemed glued to her hand more than ever. I even started tracking her mileage, a trick I picked up from an article about catching cheaters. Her car's odometer told a story that didn't match the one she was telling me. One evening, as she got ready for bed, I noticed her phone lighting up on the nightstand. She quickly grabbed it, the screen tilted away from me. "Work emails," she muttered, not even looking at me. But I caught a glimpse of the notification. A name I didn't recognize, followed by a heart emoji. I wanted to call her out right then and there, but I bit my tongue. I couldn't afford to tip my hand too soon. Instead, I nodded, playing the role of the clueless husband. "Work keeping you busy?" I asked, keeping my tone casual. She sighed, her face a picture of exhaustion. "You have no idea." While she was at work the next day, I decided it was time to dig deeper. Selena wasn't tech-savvy, and her laptop passwords were laughably predictable. Within minutes, I had access to her email. What I found there made my stomach churn. Messages from someone named Ryan filled her inbox. They weren't explicit, but the tone was unmistakable. Playful, flirtatious, intimate. One subject line caught my eye. Last night was perfect. I opened it with trembling hands, my heart racing as I read her words. I can't stop thinking about you. Let's do it again soon. My breath hitched, and I felt a wave of nausea. This wasn't paranoia. This was proof. I decided to follow her. The next morning, she left the house dressed to the nines, her perfume lingering in the air long after she walked out the door. Her usual route to work took her downtown, but today she made an unexpected detour. She parked outside a quaint cafe on the edge of town, one I'd never heard her mention before. My chest tightened as I watched her step out of the car, her heels clicking against the pavement. She wasn't just grabbing coffee. She was meeting someone. I parked a block away, careful to stay out of sight. My heart pounded as I watched her walk inside. Moments later, a man arrived, tall, confident, dressed in business casual attire. He glanced around briefly before stepping inside. My hands gripped the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white. This was it. The moment the lies came crashing down. From my vantage point, I could see them through the cafe's front window. They sat at a small table in the corner, leaning in close as they talked and laughed. Selena's face lit up in a way I hadn't seen in months. She reached across the table, her fingers brushing his hand. The sight made my stomach churn, but I forced myself to stay calm. Losing my cool now wouldn't get me what I needed. I pulled out my phone and began snapping photos, capturing every damning moment. They stayed there for over an hour, sipping their lattes and sharing a pastry. When they finally left, I followed them at a safe distance. They walked to their cars, parked side by side, and lingered by his driver's side door. He reached out, tucking a strand of her hair behind her ear before leaning in to kiss her cheek. She smiled at him, her eyes filled with a warmth that once belonged to me. I took another photo, my hand shaking with a mix of rage and adrenaline. That evening, Selena came home with takeout in hand, her face alight with what I now recognized as guilt masquerading as cheerfulness. "Thought we could have a nice dinner together," she said, setting the bags on the table. "You've been working so hard lately." Her words felt like acid, burning away any remaining trust. But I smiled, playing the part of the unsuspecting husband. "That's thoughtful of you." "Thanks, Sel." As we ate, I watched her closely, noting every subtle tell. How her eyes darted to her phone, how her laughter felt forced. She thought she was in control, that her lies were safe. She had no idea I was holding the match that would burn her carefully constructed world to the ground. That night, as Selena slept soundly beside me, I sat at the kitchen table. The photos I had taken earlier glared back at me from my phone. Her smile, the way she leaned into him, the casual intimacy between them. It was all there, captured in damning clarity. My anger simmered beneath the surface, but I forced myself to remain calm. Acting out of rage would only give her an excuse to twist the narrative. I needed to be smarter, colder. I opened my laptop and began creating a timeline. The late nights, the unexplained mileage on her car, the receipt from the boutique. All the pieces were finally falling into place. Each new detail felt like another nail in the coffin of our marriage. It wasn't just about betrayal anymore, it was about uncovering the full scope of her lies. I found myself scrolling through her social media accounts, searching for anything I might have missed. Her posts were as polished as ever. Pictures of us smiling at family gatherings, captions about how grateful she was for our life together. The irony made me sick. She had crafted an illusion so perfect, even I had believed it. But now that illusion was shattering, and I was determined to expose the truth. The following morning, Selena left for work with her usual breezy goodbye. She kissed me on the cheek, her lips brushing my skin like a ghost of affection. "Have a good day," she said, her voice light and carefree. I watched her walk out the door, her heels clicking against the pavement, and felt a surge of determination. Today would be different. Today, I would dig deeper. Once I was certain she was gone, I pulled her laptop out of its usual spot on the desk. Her passwords were laughably easy to guess: our anniversary, her mother's birthday. Within minutes, I had access to her emails. What I found there only confirmed my suspicions. Emails from Ryan littered her inbox, their tone casual but filled with inside jokes and shared secrets. One email in particular caught my eye. The subject line read, "Can't wait for Friday." I clicked it, my stomach churning as I read his words. "I booked the reservation for 7 p.m. Can't wait to see you." I stared at the screen, the weight of his words sinking in. She wasn't even trying to hide it anymore. Friday came quickly, and with it, the opportunity I'd been waiting for. I knew exactly where Selena would be at 7 p.m., and I wasn't going to let her enjoy it in peace. I arrived at the restaurant a few minutes before their reservation, parking in a spot with a clear view of the entrance. My heart pounded as I watched her car pull into the lot. She stepped out, wearing a sleek black dress I had never seen before, her hair perfectly styled. For a moment, I felt a pang of sadness. This was the woman I had fallen in love with, the woman I thought I'd spend the rest of my life with. But that woman was gone, replaced by someone I barely recognized. Ryan arrived shortly after, his confident stride making my stomach churn. He greeted her with a hug, his hand lingering on her back just a moment too long. They walked into the restaurant together, their laughter echoing faintly in the evening air. I sat in my car, gripping the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white. This wasn't just infidelity, this was a deliberate, calculated betrayal. I followed them inside, keeping a safe distance as the host led them to their table. They sat near the back, tucked away in a corner where they likely thought they wouldn't be seen. I positioned myself at a table with a clear view of them, my heart pounding as I watched their interaction. She leaned in close, her hand brushing his as they spoke. His laughter filled the space, a sound that grated against my nerves. When the waiter approached their table, I saw my chance. I stood up, walking toward them with deliberate steps. Selena didn't notice me until I was standing right next to her. The color drained from her face, her eyes widening in shock. "Having a nice evening?" I asked, my voice calm but laced with steel. Ryan looked up, his confusion quickly turning to unease. Selena opened her mouth to speak, but no words came out. For the first time, she seemed truly powerless. The restaurant fell silent as the weight of the confrontation settled over the room. Selena tried to regain her composure, her voice trembling as she said, "It's not what it looks like." I laughed, the sound cold and bitter. "Not what it looks like? Really? So you weren't planning this romantic dinner behind my back?" Ryan shifted uncomfortably in his seat, his gaze darting between Selena and me. "Look, Ma, maybe we should talk about this outside." "No," I interrupted, my tone sharp. "We'll talk about it right here. You don't get to sneak around with my wife and then ask for privacy." Selena's face flushed with embarrassment, her carefully constructed mask crumbling under the weight of the truth. She tried to reach for my hand, but I pulled away. "Don't," I said, my voice low and firm. "You don't get to play the victim here." After leaving the restaurant, I drove home in silence, my mind racing. Selena had tried to explain herself, but her excuses rang hollow. She claimed it was a mistake, a moment of weakness, but the emails, the lies, the months of deception, they told a different story. By the time I reached our driveway, my resolve was set. This wasn't just about ending the marriage. This was about reclaiming my life. The following morning, I woke up early, the events of the previous night replaying in my mind like a broken record. Selena was still asleep when I stepped into the kitchen, her breathing soft and steady from the bedroom. It was hard to believe someone so deceitful could look so peaceful. I poured myself a cup of coffee, the bitterness mirroring the anger that simmered beneath my skin. Today was the day I would gather everything I needed to ensure there was no room for Selena to twist the truth. I started by pulling out the folder I had prepared over the past week. Inside were the photos from the cafe, screenshots of her emails with Ryan, and the receipt from the boutique. Each piece of evidence felt like a victory, proof that I wasn't crazy, that the doubts and suspicions that had plagued me for months were justified. But I needed more, something that would make it impossible for her to deny what she'd done. I opened her laptop again, my fingers flying over the keys as I searched her browser history and recent files. What I found made my stomach churn. Hotel reservations under her name, charged to a credit card I didn't recognize. The date matched the nights she claimed to be working late. My chest tightened as I clicked through the confirmation emails, the details staring back at me like a cruel joke. I realized I couldn't do this alone. As much as I wanted to handle everything myself, the weight of it all was starting to feel unbearable. I needed someone to talk to, someone who could help me navigate the mess Selena had created. That's when I decided to call my best friend, Marcus. Marcus and I had known each other since college. He was the kind of friend who would drop everything if you needed him, and I knew I could trust him to keep this quiet. When I called, he answered on the first ring. "Hey, man," he said, his voice warm but cautious. "What's going on? You sound off." I took a deep breath, the words catching in my throat. "Marcus, I need to talk to you. It's about Selena." There was a pause on the other end of the line, followed by a soft sigh. "All right. Where are you? I'll come over." When Marcus arrived, I felt a wave of relief. He walked into the house, his gaze immediately locking onto mine. "All right," he said, setting his keys on the counter. "What's going on?" I handed him the folder, my hands trembling as he flipped through its contents. His expression shifted from confusion to anger to disbelief as he took in the photos, the emails, and the receipts. "Jesus, man," he muttered, running a hand through his hair. "I had no idea." "Neither did I," said bitterly. "Not until a few weeks ago." Marcus sat down at the kitchen table, his brow furrowed in thought. "What are you going to do?" "I'm not sure yet," I admitted, "but I need to make sure she can't talk her way out of this. I want everything out in the open." With Marcus's help, I began planning the confrontation. It wasn't enough to catch Selena in a lie. I needed to ensure there was no room for manipulation or excuses. We spent hours going over the evidence, organizing it into a clear timeline that would leave no doubt about what had happened. By the time we were done, I felt a sense of clarity I hadn't felt in weeks. Marcus clapped me on the shoulder, his expression firm. "You've got this, man. She's not going to see it coming." That evening, I sat in the living room, waiting for Selena to come home. My heart pounded as the minutes ticked by, each second bringing me closer to the moment I'd been dreading. When I heard her car pull into the driveway, I took a deep breath, steeling myself for what was about to happen. She walked through the door, her smile faltering slightly when she saw me sitting there, the folder on the coffee table in front of me. "Hey," she said cautiously, "what's going on?" "Sit down," I said, my voice calm but firm. "We need to talk." Selena hesitated, her eyes darting to the folder before she sat down. "What is this?" she asked, her tone defensive. I opened the folder and slid it across the table to her. "This is everything," I said simply. "The photos, the emails, the hotel reservation. Don't bother denying it. I already know." Her face went pale as she flipped through the contents, her hands trembling. "I can explain," she began, but I cut her off. "Don't," I said sharply. "I've heard enough lies. I want the truth, all of it." At first, she tried to deflect, claiming it wasn't what it looked like, that I had misunderstood. But as I pressed her, her defenses began to crumble. Finally, she broke down, tears streaming down her face as she admitted to the affair. "It wasn't supposed to happen like this," she sobbed. "I didn't mean for it to go this far." Her words felt hollow, a desperate attempt to salvage what little dignity she had left. But I wasn't interested in her excuses. "You made your choices," I said coldly, "and now you have to live with them." The days after Selena's confession were surreal. She packed a small bag that night and left without a word about where she was going. The silence in the house was deafening, a stark contrast to the chaos of the confrontation. For the first time in years, I was alone with my thoughts, and they were relentless. Friends and family started calling, some out of concern, others out of curiosity. Word traveled quickly in our social circle, though I wasn't sure how much Selena had told anyone. I kept my answers brief, unwilling to let others influence how I handled the fallout. This wasn't about public perception. It was about regaining control of my life. A few days later, I received a text from Selena. "Can we talk?" The simplicity of the message made my blood boil. After everything she had done, after the lies and betrayal, she thought we could just talk? I deleted the message without responding, knowing there was nothing left to say. I wasn't content to let Ryan walk away from this unscathed. He was just as culpable as Selena, and I knew he had his own life that was ripe for disruption. It didn't take long to find his wife's social media profile, a picture-perfect showcase of their suburban life. Christine, her name was, and she deserved to know the truth. I spent hours composing an email to her. I attached the photos of Selena and Ryan at the cafe, the screenshots of their emails, and the hotel reservation confirmations. The message was concise, devoid of any embellishments or malice. I wasn't doing this out of spite. I was doing it because she had a right to know. When I finally hit send, a strange sense of calm washed over me. I had done my part. Whatever came next was out of my hands. It didn't take long for the fallout to reach Ryan. A few days after sending the email, I received a message from Christine. Her words were raw, filled with shock and gratitude. She thanked me for telling her the truth and assured me she would take action. Her strength in the face of betrayal was inspiring, and it gave me a renewed sense of purpose. Ryan, on the other hand, wasn't as composed. He called me the next day, his voice dripping with anger and desperation. "What the hell is wrong with you?" he barked. "You had no right to do that." I laughed, the sound cold and humorless. "No right? You slept with my wife, lied to your own, and you think I don't have the right to tell the truth? Spare me, Ryan." His attempts to intimidate me fell flat. I hung up on him, knowing he was scrambling to salvage what little he had left. With Selena and Ryan out of my life, I finally had the space to focus on myself. The house, once a symbol of our crumbling marriage, became my sanctuary. I spent days cleaning, rearranging furniture, and throwing out anything that reminded me of her. Each act felt like reclaiming a piece of myself. I picked up old hobbies I had abandoned during our relationship. My guitar, dusty from years of neglect, became a lifeline. I played for hours, losing myself in the music. I also started running again, the steady rhythm of my feet on the pavement clearing my mind in ways I hadn't experienced in years. Friends I had lost touch with began reaching out, offering their support. I accepted their invitations for coffee, dinners, and drinks, slowly rebuilding a social life that wasn't tied to Selena. For the first time in a long time, I felt like I could breathe. Months passed, and the pain of Selena's betrayal began to dull. It didn't disappear entirely. It left scars, faint reminders of the life I had once lived. But those scars didn't define me. They were proof of my resilience, of my ability to survive and thrive in the face of adversity. Selena tried reaching out a few more times, her messages filled with apologies and pleas for forgiveness. I never responded. She had made her choices, and I had made mine. Ryan's life, too, had crumbled under the weight of his actions. Christine divorced him, airing their dirty laundry for all to see. He lost his job, his reputation, and the life he had built on lies. As for me, I found peace in the little things. Quiet mornings with a cup of coffee on the porch, the satisfaction of a well-cooked meal, the freedom to live life on my own terms. I wasn't the same person I had been when this all began. I was stronger, wiser, and more aware of my worth. If there's one thing I've learned, it's this. Betrayal doesn't have to break you. It can rebuild you, strip away the illusions, and force you to confront the truth about who you are and what you deserve. And for anyone facing the kind of pain I endured, I have only one piece of advice. Don't settle. Don't let anyone convince you that you're less than you are. Rise above it, because there's nothing more satisfying than watching the people who try to tear you down crumble under the weight of their own lies while you rise. And rise I did.